Yeah, so I think while everyone's coming in, we should get started with the webinar. So this webinar is really all about introducing the Carbonmark Offset API, which is powered by Provide Payments. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail today around what this entails specifically, some of the world first features that we're bringing to market today, and how you can get started and begin adding value to your business today. So my name is Liam Ellul. I am the head of solutions at Carbonmark, and I am focused on bringing state-of-the-art technology to the environmental assets market to help accelerate projects that remediate the negative effects of climate change and to empower businesses to direct financing towards these organizations and add value to their customers. We also have Ryan. Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Liam. My name is Ryan, and I'm the developer evangelist at Provide. I come from a really rich, deep enterprise systems background from supply chain across different industries. Really excited to showcase this API today to think about how your business as an enterprise or even a small or medium-sized business can use this API to drive that kind of positive change that Liam was talking about. Liam, would you like to take it further?
Thanks so much, Ryan. So the agenda for today, we're going to start with a brief primer on specifically what is Carbonmark for people that might not fully be familiar with what Carbonmark is and the core platform for Carbonmark. I'm then going to move into a high-level overview of the Carbonmark Offset API, what problems the Carbonmark Offset API solves, and some of its capabilities that exist and are ready for integration today. And then we're going to hand over to Ryan to do a quick API demo, really to show you how easy it is to integrate. We're not going to go too deep into the code. It's really to illustrate just the ease of technical integration and how polished the product is. We're also going to sort of go through a billing overview to help you understand how seamless the billing experience is once you're set up and just how painless it is, and some of the really interesting business benefits that come with using Provide Payments and the Carbonmark API. We're also going to prime you on how you can immediately access this API and some of the additional benefits that the Carbonmark and Provide team are leaning into for this public release. And then we're going to also have some time in the webinar for Q&A. We're going to try and be as concise as we can as we move through this agenda. And we really hope that the things that we're going to be presenting for you today resonate. And we're really looking forward to answering any questions that you might have. So let's get into it with a brief primer on Carbonmark. Carbonmark is the most transparent and accessible carbon marketplace in the world. And what this means is that you can buy and retire high impact projects that generate carbon offsets with zero commission. And when you purchase and retire one of our hundreds of projects on the marketplace out of millions of tons of high demand projects, you'll get an instant settlement, which means that you'll get your retirement certificate in real time. And that retirement certificate will be feature rich with transaction tracing. So you can trace all the way to the origin registry where the carbon offset has originated. And it's all self-serve as well. You don't have to, email or call a broker or anything like that. Everything is self-serve, easy to access, zero commission, and no sign-up fee as well. So this is Carbonmark. It's essentially a really fast way to finance climate impact and provide a compliant and secure way of doing the carbon accounting to ensure that there's integrity there. But today, what I want to present is what we call the Carbonmark Offset API. And really what this is a way to programmatically interface with the Carbonmark marketplace. So what this means is that if you're an app developer, so for instance, if you have a shop front, or if you are selling, airline tickets, a tourist experience, a particular brand that incorporates environmental messaging into its customer experience, if you have a supply chain application and you need to track and retire offsets, that's also something that the API can do. And really, it allows you to surface carbon projects within your app experience for the customer to purchase or to bundle into your existing product suite. And with the click of a button on the customer side, you will be able to access the millions of tons of carbon from hundreds of different projects across many different segments within the Carbonmark marketplace. And it does this instantly. So when your end user in your application clicks buy and retire, it will send that message to the Carbonmark marketplace through the API. It will then retire, create a certificate, and do that all instantly in a few seconds. This is really an innovation in the architecture in the sense that we're able to do this instantaneously. And there's really a number of problems that this is solving. But currently, what's happening is that organizations who want to offer carbon projects to their clients, they have to take inventory of those carbon offsets. And what this means is they have to purchase the carbon offsets from a broker, and then they're subject to price risk. So when you purchase that offset, you may hold it for some time, and during that duration, the price may go down or it may go up. You're subject to that pricing risk. Obviously, as well as a reseller, you have to incur capital expenditure to actually acquire the inventory. So if you have a forestry's project that you're wanting to offer to your clients to retire under their names, you obviously have to incur that cost and hold that before you can make your sale. And then you're also wearing that cost risk there as well. And another thing as well, when we talk to clients that can be a blocker for offering projects at a consumer level, is that it's difficult to retire less than 1 ton in carbon registries. So a particular feature that we have in Carbonmark and also through the Carbonmark Offset API is that you can retire down to the gram of projects. So we offer fractional offsetting as a component of this real-time offset API. And really why we're addressing these problems is that we think that they are significant blockers for organizations who want to offer these projects and open new funding channels to their customers, but are prohibited and blocked out of the market due to a number of these obstacles. So we really see the Carbonmark Offset API as a way of enabling scale for this regenerative financing of projects via programmatic access. So I'll just jump ahead and talk about the business benefits that we have with the Carbonmark Offset API. So as opposed to carrying that price risk on inventory, you have zero price risk. So when your customer puts in an order for a specific project, it will actually go to the Carbonmark API to do the order. It will source it, and then it will retire it, and there'll be no cost to you. And that's based on the 30-day terms, and we'll get into the billing. But essentially what that means is that your customers can buy and you can make the sale of the carbon project, and you don't have to incur, the price risk, because the moment that button's clicked, the price that's displayed is the price that it will be retired at. So you can be sure that you can control the cost of sale the whole way through the experience. And then obviously, because this is all happening in real time, you don't have to carry any inventory either. So you have zero cost of capital with this solution as well. Your focus is on the customer experience, is on enabling the access and driving the demand for your products. We will handle the rest. It's really an additive piece that you can integrate into your business application. And then the third thing, of course, is that there are zero hidden expenses. So because Carbonmark is a spot market for carbon, and that we've done a number of innovations to allow real-time pricing in our marketplace, there's no hidden expenses. The API will be quoting the projects in real time. And when you do a retirement, that price transparency can be carried the whole way through to yourself and also to the customer as well. So there's really zero hidden expenses here. Everything's transparent. You can see it all in real time. There's no waiting or carrying that price risk anymore. And really, the technology that's enhanced here is that everything is encrypted and traceable. There's full integrity on the carbon accounting within this system. And we take on the carbon accounting for you in a way that lives in the public domain and is verifiable. We obviously can go all the way down to a gram in terms of offsetting based on what your requirements are related to your products. And then, the API is just a familiar web API. So anyone with a developer team has a very good chance of having their developers be incredibly familiar with these web standard tools. And Ryan will give a bit of a lens into this. And then, of course, 30-day terms. So you will get, based on the volume that you move through your application, it will be on standard 30-day terms. And depending on pre-authorization, there's the possibility for up to 90-day terms as well for specific customers, but that's subject to pre-authorization. So incredibly capital efficient for your business. And this is what we're really excited about is the business value of this as well and what we've managed to do here. So it goes without saying as well that there's actually some things in Carbonmark's DNA that make us incredibly cost effective for comparable projects on the market. So the DNA of Carbonmark, we're a non-profit Swiss association. So as a result, we're able to offer equivalent projects at very competitive prices. On average, our projects are 30% less expensive than, other spot markets, for instance. And that really comes down to our DNA and the way that we've developed as a project as well. It's really worth highlighting that as well. We're really focused on the mission and making this market as accessible as possible and ensuring as much of the financing goes to the projects. So Ryan, why don't I hand over to you and you can explain some of the aspects here around the integration and some of those other benefits there.
I'll share my screen in just a minute with a look at how to use the Carbonmark API through Postman and through Node.js, which are very common developer platforms that even beginner developers have used frequently. People may know that previously Provide also integrated to SAP as well, but today we're going to focus, thinking about how quick and easy it is to use this API. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through a very simple use case where we are going to retire a specific carbon offset. We simply need to acquire an access token, generate a request, sign the request, and then finally broadcast it. So this is a look at this API test tool called Postman. Many developers are familiar with that. I mentioned here as well an example in JavaScript. So here's a look at some of the source code, and I'll post links in the chat here for folks to go and discover this, and so you can share with your developer friends. But similarly here, if I just go enter a command, and this will just run some JavaScript code. This will execute some code, and there you have it. There is a link to a carbon retirement that we just created right there. Let's actually look at this one too. And this is some of the benefits of the overall platform are these certificates that come with a lot of really rich data in terms of learning about what kind of carbon retirement you did, and these other characteristics of where it's located as well. So we are able to do ones that are specific to those characteristics as well, and would be happy to share more with you in terms of how to integrate this into any of your applications. So really excited about that. So like we said, even a very small amount of carbon down to the gram, we're able to support. Another time I can share more about our other integrations across SAP and ServiceNow, but as a general purpose API, think about how you can integrate this anywhere. Supply chain systems, your e-commerce store, anywhere you can imagine where you think climate action is deserved. So with that, I'll hand it back to Liam.
Fantastic. Yeah, so some of the things that Ryan highlighted there is that this code is pretty much copy paste. We have a resource hub for your developers. We'll be sending some information out after the webinar as well. So all of this is well documented. We have a GitHub repository for it, and it's blazingly fast for your developers to integrate this. As Ryan said, even junior developers will be familiar with the tools that are required for this integration. So have a play around with the API. Obviously, reach out and let us know. We'll provide our contact details. And we'd love to learn more about how you're playing with the API, how you're integrating with it, and support you along the way there. And then the third part, really, playing around with small volumes, retiring grams, just really validating that pilot in your application. And then to scale it up, it's really simple. And with that, I'll go to the slide here around the billing experience as well. So once you've gone to the resources hub and you've essentially copy pasted the code in with a few adjustments into your application, and you've tested a few fractional offsets and it meets your requirements, at that point, we can really scale up from there. So step one is obviously to connect your application, and that should be enough for you to start testing. And then once we're ready to scale, we go into step two here. And this is to register your API account. In a few clicks, you can actually register your API account. This is all available today. And I'm happy to take you through this experience with Ryan to get you set up in your application as well. It takes about a minute to get signed up. And then you can start to retire the projects through your application. And then obviously at the end of the month, based on the retirement volume that's moved through your API, you will receive a monthly bill as well. So you don't actually have to worry about finding the funds and paying. So if you're a small to medium-sized business, you're used to transacting via invoice with your suppliers, and we can give you that flexibility and that capital efficiency as well. It's just a really business-friendly, low-friction way to get started. And we're really excited about this solution. We think with the clients that we've already worked on in our private preview, we're getting really great responses. So we're looking forward to sharing this with everyone. So that's really a bit about the billing experience. And then in terms of the added benefits, in terms of how we want to work with you as this rolls out into the public. So, we can get started and go from 0 to 1 immediately around this. So this is in production. We are having a staged release, but we would say that it's coming out of private preview at this stage, just based on the number of clients that we have using this. We also will provide full technical support as well. So, myself and Ryan are a message away on an ongoing basis. You'll have a billing relationship with Provide Services, who have done a lot of innovation under the hood to provide such a flexible billing experience. And we would also encourage you to show us your solution as well. We would love to share this with our audience, with our community. Carbonmark has over 100,000 strong in our audience, and we have a broad network in our community as well. We would love to showcase solutions that are developing on top of the Carbonmark API as well. And we would love to support and grow that community around our technologies as well. So I guess with that, it's really a call to action for everyone in the audience to book a demo today. So I've put a Calendly link in the slide. So if anything that I've shared already interests you, I'd encourage you to just head to that link. Also, feel free to contact me. I've put my email on this slide as well. If you have any other questions or want more information, I'm always happy to have a chat as well. We're really excited to get this in the hands of more people and make more of an impact together. So with that, really, I'm keen to progress it over to Q&A. From there, we can answer some of the questions that have come through over the presentation. So there's just a question coming in around, are the retirements done in real time? Yes, they are. So we will provide you with a certificate.
The way the API works is it purchases the offset and retires them all in one go. Are the credits retired in the end customer's name on the registry, or is it something more generic? When you're implementing the API, that is up to you in terms of how you want to attribute the beneficiary of the purchase. Do we get registry retirement numbers? Yes, there is a link in the certificate that will take you back to additional data from the registry related to the project you're offsetting with. And a Carbonmark retirement number, there's a unique transaction hash that would correspond with that as well. Okay, how could this API tool be used in conjunction with SAP's carbon accounting software? Are there partnerships in the works there? So, of course, SAP made a really visionary move lately in terms of what they call the Green Ledger, which is actually tracking emissions at a granular level in supply chain and into other transactions. And we really saw that as something SAP would inevitably do. So we had that enterprise scale in mind in terms of building an API that would suit those needs actually in terms of emissions. Are there partnerships in the works there? Nothing I can share publicly, but I would say there's strong interest across different consulting partners and other major enterprises in usage of the API there. Can you compare or contrast your API and the broader solution with what else is being developed? Of course, there's other Carbon APIs that are available, but I think those other benefits that, Liam, you were talking about in terms of the efficiency of the Carbonmark marketplace itself are really evident here in terms of how this works. Anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest contrast is really the transparency and traceability. So I think when we look at opening up project and carbon offset distribution into like consumer channels, for instance, how things are currently done in the competitive landscape is that there will be like a bulk retirement on the registry under the solution provider's name, for instance. And then you really have to rely on the internal accounting of the organization in terms of how they are essentially representing and recording that data in their own accounting systems. So it's quite opaque and there are some issues there for sure. I would say how our system contrasts is that the moment there's a retirement, there's a public record and it's completely traceable. And that would be probably a key differentiator, the instantaneous nature of it and also the transparency of it and the fact that all of these retirements are actually all in the public domain from the moment that they're retired. That's a key differentiator for us.
I would add too, I think the identity and accounts model that we added as well is as a step ahead of some other offerings that are there that may be trying to do similar things to this API, in terms of the signature of the wallet and attributing it to your exact user and or individual organizational units within your organization is possible there. So that's another big advantage overall.
Absolutely. So I think there was a question around fees and things like that. So to access the API, there's no ongoing monthly subscription or anything like that. We just have a fee on volume, and we do call it a fee. It's really a payment fee that Provide takes just to power their infrastructure. And that fee decreases over time based on the volume as well. So depending on the volume, we are still open to negotiating the fee as well, depending on the volume. We do have an opening fee that we would start with, but it would tier down as you do more volume. So kind of have like a step chart based on the usage patterns. So some people that we've worked with have sort of a reliable kind of offset cadence, while others are more lumpy. So we are currently figuring out how to do that. And at the moment, we've moved sort of from monthly thinking to annual thinking in terms of how we would charge that fee. But it would be purely based on volume. The continual question there as well, in that question, there's a few question marks, is there a way for partners to monetize this API? And the answer here is yes, absolutely. So if you're providing a value-added service, then you could potentially charge a retail markup, or if you're concerned about essentially putting the price too close to a spot price, if you're concerned about a spread or something like that, then you could increase the margin if you wanted to in your application. So that's one way. Because we are offering a spot market, it's pretty typical for resellers and distributors to add a spread to those projects. So that's one way that you could monetize the usage of the API.
Of course, we thought of supply chain and of course traditional environmental services, but think of the many different everyday things we do that may cause us to offset carbon. How do you see the diversity of digital carbon available changing in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that there's going to be a lot more diversity in the digital carbon space in the next 6 months. Absolutely. There are a number of alternate registries, smaller ones that have a lot of adoption already from and are developing great reputations that are quite nimble and developing and innovating in the space. So I would expect in the next 6 months that the diversity of digital carbon continues to increase. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think some of those alternate registries like QRES or others are doing some pretty innovative things with additional digital MRV data, satellite data, things that are, even when they're outside the normal registries. And we do have many credits registered from Vera already on the platform, but we're taking projects from, multiple registries. And Liam's an expert in this, more so an expert on that than I am, but there's great selection there overall. Positive Trends asks, is this the most advanced blockchain carbon offset API in the space? I think so. How many else are out there?
Yeah.
And we feel great about this. The fiat gateway, the usage of the on-demand retirement, I think it's a great offering overall. There's other advantages to the underlying tech that we didn't cover today. in terms of other encryption, cryptography things or on-chain things that we could introduce later, but that's kind of beyond the scope of this. It says, can I try out the API on the Mumbai testnet? Good question. We certainly can. There's also, we think there's a lot of value as well in terms of testing out in production, right? Getting your first ton, because we love to see users, take ownership of the solution. And, when we have those Calendly invites to you individually, that's a key outcome I'm going to lead your developers on, is actually doing your first carbon retirement. But testnet support is there as well. Someone asked, is the certificate PDF-based or blockchain-based? There's a PDF and there's a transaction record on the Polygon mainnet. So it's a bit both, actually, really. And it's simple to use. It's just a URL away. There's no technical overhead in terms of being able to check into that.
So we've got another question here. Is there a touch point for project developers to feed credit supply into the marketplace? Or is this the wrong question? No, I think it's the right question. I think it relates to the question that was asked earlier around, just the diversity of projects that are actually coming through. So, I mean, it really comes down to the registries really are the key component there. And we're getting a lot of positive momentum. So in terms of answering that specifically, the touch point is definitely registries and whether they are working with our shared standards. So I guess watch this space in terms of new registries bringing supply on as well. That's really the touch point there.
Yeah, and I think it's this is a great solution for bringing different project developers, buyers, and sellers all together, right? So if you're a carbon project and there's an enterprise you've been wanting to work with and you've trying to figure out a way to get connected, this API is a great way to do that. We'd be glad to collaborate with you and help build that relationship there too. Can we filter the carbon projects to show by country in the API? Of course. It's simple as adding a identifier to the specific project that tracks all those characteristics, right? So by country, by methodology, by vintage, there's simply one key that goes into the retirement that controls that. I see another question. Are there other major features you plan to develop to this API? At the moment, we're focused primarily on the offsets, but we can also perhaps look into emissions verification in the future. But for now, really focus just on the offsetting of carbon. And if there's certain feature requests, we'd love to hear it. Like if you want to do self-custody of carbon as an enterprise, that we could support as well.
Yeah, I mean, start using it and give us feedback on what you'd like. And if there's anything that's a must-have in your experience building on top of it, me and Ryan are here to help.
There's a couple questions about our relationship to KlimaDAO. Liam, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Carbonmark's really been built out of that community. So it's really aligned to the community in terms of making digital carbon more accessible and better integrated into the economy. That's really the driving force behind that. We're part of the Klima community and, an extension of that.
There's this question. I'm assuming that if the carbon retirements are done in real time, there's no cancellation calls. All sales are final. That would be correct, right? The whole point of carbon retirement really is that once you've retired the carbon, it's not eligible to be resold back into the marketplace. That is really the goal in terms of why many companies would buy carbon offsets, other than speculation, is to retire them such that the market reflects the impact. Did I get it right? I think I did.
Awesome. Got to. Yeah. So this thing is really powerful. So how we limit and use it and have that is important, right? So all calls are final. Exactly.
But it's advantageous, right? Because we talked about the efficiency of this marketplace. It's like the Uber of carbon retirements, right? It just gets you from here to there, simply without any additional hassles or months of paperwork or millions of dollars needed to go into a project. You can just simply go use this API, retire any amount you need at any time.
And then maybe the final question for the webinar, besides the Offset API, do you plan to release an API to retrieve the project lists? Yes, that's a feature. So we were talking about with a client today, actually. Yes, that's something that's there. A lot of this data already exists. It's just putting the pointers in to the API. So things like available supply, project details, so like descriptions and links to more official documentation and things like that. as well as the actual list of available projects as well. This is all data that we have access to and that we're drawing from. I mean, the big one that we added was the ability to look at how many tons supply there actually is, to make sure that you're not putting orders in and then there's nothing there and it throws an error and things like that. So yeah, and a request we get is the project information as well. So that's something that we support.
There's a couple of other questions here. What currencies are supported for offsetting? By default, it's US dollar, but if you have an alternate, currency in your country, work with us. We'll work with you on that there. Quick question about baseline protocol standard compliant for Scope 3 offsets. That's a big topic I'm passionate about in terms of emissions verification in Scope 3. I don't have time to answer, but come on the Baseline show. That's on Wednesdays with Baseline Protocol. I'll talk more about that sometime.
We're going to do these webinars more regularly as well. So don't feel like this is the big, we did a webinar and then we're going to disappear for 6 months. It's going to be on a more frequent cadence, which is the perfect time in the webinar to say that there's another one coming in a week's time on July 18th. We've been talking about the programmatic access to Carbonmark. We're going to now, in the next webinar, talk about how you as an end user or as a consultant or as an advisor can actually go in and source directly from Carbonmark with a credit card and get the certificate in real time. So tune in for that one. It's available. I'll send a link through after the webinar. Don't miss this one. It'll be great. I look forward to seeing you all on future webinars as well. So thank you so much.